The pool and the whisper. The locals had called it Isvoral Tacket, the silent spring. Ethan Hale had laughed when they first told him the name, sitting around a wood stove in the mountain village 2 nights before. They spoke in low voices, eyes darting toward the forest as if the cave itself could hear them. Bad water, one of the guides had warned. It belongs to the old ones. No man drinks there. Ethan had smiled politely, jotting the words into his leather-bound notebook. He'd spent years in places like this, dusty border villages at the edge of maps, always chasing the next unknown chamber, the next unmapped system. Superstition came with the territory. But superstition had never stopped him. Now, crawling through a narrow limestone throat 100 meters below the Carpathian ridgeline, he wondered if maybe it should have. The cavern opened suddenly, like stepping out of a coffin into a cathedral. His headlamp swept across formations too symmetrical to be natural. Columns rose in perfect hexagons, their surfaces etched with grooves that shimmered faintly as if they drank his light. And there, at the heart of the chamber, lay the pool. It was small, 10 feet across, maybe, but its surface shone like polished glass. No dust disturbed it. No drip of water rippled it. Ethan crouched at the edge, lowering his pack, and for the first time in years of caving, felt his mouth go dry. The air was heavy, humid but still, thick with the mineral tang of stone. He leaned closer. The water was impossibly clear. The stone basin beneath had been carved smooth, etched with spirals that pulled the eye inward, until he felt like the pool was a mouth, and he was leaning over its tongue. He licked cracked lips. His canteen was nearly empty. He'd rationed carefully, but the crawl space had taken longer than expected. He glanced back toward the narrow chute he'd entered through. Even if he turned back now, it would be hours before he reached the surface. Just a sip, he told himself. Just enough to wet the throat. He scooped a handful. The water was shockingly cold, like liquid stone. He tasted it. It was metallic, like biting a live wire. His tongue tingled, and the chill spread down his throat, blooming into his chest. He coughed, staggered back, but the sensation only grew. His heartbeat thundered in his ears, the cavern spinning. And then he heard it. A whisper, close behind him. A man's voice, rough and calm at once. "You have no idea what you just became." Ethan froze. His headlamp beam jerked across the cavern walls, empty stone, shadow, nothing. He spun, fists clenched, heart hammering. "Who's there?" His voice cracked. The sound fell flat, smothered by the chamber. Silence. Then the sensations hit him all at once. His veins burned as if fire licked along them. His eyes sharpened. Every vein in the stone, every fleck of mineral dust hung before him in impossible detail. He could hear the cave itself, the slow groan of rocks settling, the hiss of distant water, the faint hum of something deeper, older. He dropped to his knees, gripping the stone. Visions burst behind his eyes, flashes of stars wheeling overhead, of cities carved into asteroids, of beings tall as mountains bending rivers of molten light with their hands. The images were too much, crashing over him like a tide. "No, no!" He tried to steady himself, but his limbs betrayed him. The light on his helmet flickered, dimmed, then pulsed with his racing heart. Somewhere in the maelstrom of sensation, the whisper returned, softer, closer, as though it spoke from inside his own skull. "It is done. The seed takes root." Ethan gasped, clutching his chest. His pulse thundered, then slowed, steadied. The world tilted sideways, vision narrowing into darkness. As he collapsed onto the cavern floor, one final thought clawed its way into his mind, half memory, half intuition. The pool wasn't a spring. It wasn't water. It was a door. And he had just opened it. The awakening. Ethan woke to the sound of bells. They weren't the clear chimes of a clock or a church, but dull iron gongs, muffled by distance. He blinked against a dim, fire-lit ceiling. His body felt leaden, muscles sore as if he'd run a marathon in his sleep. When he tried to sit, hands pressed him back. An old woman leaned over him, her eyes sharp beneath a headscarf. Her palm was firm but not unkind. "Easy," she said in accented English. "You drank." Ethan swallowed hard, his throat still tingling. "What happened? How did I get here?" "You were carried," she said simply, glancing toward the door. A few villagers shuffled outside, whispering. "The cave spat you out. Men found you on the trail, half dead." Ethan frowned. He remembered collapsing, remembered the visions, but not climbing out. Not walking anywhere. "Spat me out," he repeated. The old woman's gaze lingered on him, measuring, cautious. "The spring does not keep what it cannot hold. You are alive, stranger. That is unusual." He pushed himself upright despite the ache in his bones. His senses were raw, over-sharp. Every creak of wood in the cabin, every ember popping in the hearth struck him like thunderclaps. He pressed his palms to his temples. "What's happening to me?" The woman's eyes softened. "The water remembers. It was not meant for you, but you took it." She gestured to his hands. "Now it will not let go." Ethan looked down. Faint patterns traced across his skin, spirals like those carved into the stone basin. They glowed for an instant, then faded as if ashamed to be seen. Panic fluttered in his chest. "This isn't possible. It's just water." The woman chuckled dryly. "No, not water. The pool was left when the world was young, before our kind walked upright. The architects built it. To wait. To test." He stared at her, trying to decide if she was speaking in folklore or fact. But deep in his gut, the memory of the visions burned like an afterimage. "Stars. Cities. Titans." He whispered, "And I drank it." "You drank," she agreed. "And so it grows." By evening, Ethan could no longer pretend nothing had changed. His senses sharpened further. He could trace conversations in the village square 100 paces away, follow the drift of clouds above the ridgeline, feel the very grain of the wooden walls beneath his fingers. And then came the language. At first it was nonsense, scratches in the hearthstone, patterns in the wood beams. But as he looked, the symbols rearranged themselves in his mind, unlocking like tumblers in a lock. He heard himself muttering words aloud, a tongue he'd never learned but somehow knew. The old woman watched him from the corner, silent, reverent. "You read," she said finally. Ethan stopped. I think so. I don't know how. It's like the symbols are telling me what they mean." She nodded. "The architects carved their marks in many places. No man has spoken them. Until now." Her words should have thrilled him. A breakthrough of civilizations, a key to history. But instead he felt only dread. That night, as the village slept, Ethan walked to the edge of the square. His body was restless, his mind burning with half-formed knowledge. The wind carried scents in layers, smoke, pine, wet earth, the iron tang of snow far above. And beneath it all, something deeper, a hum that wasn't sound but vibration, a pulse that came from the earth itself. He closed his eyes. The hum quickened. The ground trembled beneath his feet. A lantern hanging from the square's post shuddered, its flame flickering violently. He stepped back in alarm. The quake passed in seconds, leaving the night eerily still. He breathed hard, the echo of the pulse fading inside his chest. "What the hell is happening to me?" he whispered. The answer came not from the earth, but from the sky. Hours later, as he tried and failed to sleep, a strange light seeped through the cracks of the cabin shutters. Not torchlight, not dawn, but white gold radiance, pure and sharp. He sat up, shielding his eyes. The figure stood in the center of the room, tall and faceless, made entirely of light. Its outline shimmered, unstable, as if half real. Ethan's mouth went dry. He couldn't move, couldn't breathe. The figure tilted its head, studying him. Then it spoke, not aloud, but inside him, as the whisper in the cave had. "The architects did not choose you. You chose yourself." The light flared, then vanished, leaving only the dark and the sound of his ragged breathing. "Humanity stands." The Karen Dominion did not come in silence. Their ships tore through the upper atmosphere like falling stars, trailing fire and thunder. By dawn, the world had seen them, metal leviathans blotting out the sun, their shadows crawling across oceans and continents. For the first time in history, there was no denying humanity was not alone. Ethan stood on the rooftop of an abandoned government building, staring at the spectacle. His veins hummed with the seed's power, his mind alive with signals and whispers he couldn't yet control. The presence of the cairn pressed on his skull like a migraine. They were vast, ancient, and supremely confident. They did not come to parley. They came to take. The first envoy arrived in Lahore, walking through the streets as if the city were already theirs. The creature stood 3 meters tall, scaled like obsidian armor, with eyes that glowed faintly green. Its limbs ended in talons too delicate for a beast, too cruel for a man. Cameras recorded as it declared, in a voice carried to every device on earth. Humanity is unworthy. You have stolen what was not meant for you. Relinquish the seed, or burn. Ethan arrived before the envoy could strike. He pushed through panicked crowds, his body burning with a strange power he had no time to master. Soldiers tried to hold him back, but the hum in his blood would not be denied. He stepped into the open square, face to face with the alien. "You don't get to decide that," Ethan said, his voice steady though his heart raced. The envoy tilted its reptilian head. "You are the thief." "I'm human," Ethan said. "That's enough." The cairn laughed, or the sound it made was close enough. Then it raised its clawed hand, and the air trembled with force. Cars skidded sideways, stone cracked beneath their feet. Ethan braced himself. The architect's seed surged in him, drawing on his will. He thrust out his hand, and the force bent, just slightly, but enough to stagger the alien. The crowd gasped. Cameras zoomed. For the first time, humanity saw one of its own stand against an empire. The battle that followed was clumsy, brutal. Ethan had no training, only instinct and raw defiance. The envoy's strikes shook the square, its claws carving stone like paper. Ethan countered with sheer will, bending air, pushing against gravity, holding his ground through sheer stubbornness. He bled. He fell. But he rose again, each time harder, fiercer. The people watched, not in silence but in roars that grew louder with every moment Ethan refused to break. And then something changed. The power inside him, until now wild and solitary, reached outward. He felt the crowd, the soldiers, the children clutching their mothers. He felt their fear, but also their fire. Their refusal to submit. And the seed answered. The whispers in his head rose to a chorus, no longer just his own strength but the echo of millions. His next strike wasn't just Ethan Hale, it was humanity. The envoy reeled, stunned. Its confidence faltered for the first time. With a final surge, Ethan forced the alien back, slamming it into the stone and leaving it broken, smoking, defeated. The square erupted, not with panic, but with triumph. For the first time since the ships had darkened the sky, humanity believed it could fight back. Ethan staggered, half-conscious, but he saw the change in their eyes. Something had awakened in them, faint but undeniable. A woman lifted a chunk of stone with impossible ease to free her trapped brother. A boy no older than 10 stared unflinching at the fallen envoy, and the alien turned its gaze away first. The spark was spreading. Above, the cairn fleet shifted uneasily. They had expected one thief to reclaim the seed. Instead, they faced an entire species beginning to stir. Ethan's body ached, every muscle trembling, but his mind was clear. He wasn't the savior of humanity. He was the beginning. And beginnings could not be stopped. Becoming more than human. The world had changed in weeks. Where there had been whispers of strange weather, there were now storms tearing across borders. Where there had been tremors, now cities rattled nightly. Governments scrambled, scientists argued on live broadcasts, and still no explanation came, except Ethan Hale. He had become a symbol, though he'd never asked to be. Wherever he went, people followed. Reporters, soldiers, pilgrims. Some cursed him for the chaos, others fell to their knees as if he were a prophet. But Ethan knew the truth. He was neither savior nor devil. He was only a man who drank from the wrong pool, and lived. Still, something deeper tied him to humanity now. He could feel them. Millions of voices in a low chorus, like embers catching fire. The changes were spreading. In some, it showed a strength. In others, flashes of uncanny creativity, resilience, unshakable will. The gift was not his alone. It was leaking into humanity itself, fracturing and multiplying. That night, standing on a cliff above the valley where he'd once crawled into the cave, the voice returned. "It is time." The air shimmered, and the figure of light appeared beside him. Its form was steadier now, almost solid, tall as a man but with no face. Ethan's fists clenched. "Why me? Why not wait until we were ready?" The being tilted its head. "The architects never chose. They built seeds and left them in many worlds. Most were found by predators, or withered in silence. Your kind was not meant to drink yet, but you did. You claimed. So what happens now? Now you choose again. Keep the seed and rule. Or share it and awaken them all." Ethan looked down at the valley, the clustered villages, the distant cities beyond. He imagined himself holding all that power, bending mountains, burning skies, one man standing against the galaxy. The temptation clawed at him. But he also saw something else, the stubbornness of miners digging through stone, the fire of teachers fighting for their students, the grit of nurses in collapsing hospitals. Humanity was imperfect, fractured, quarrelsome. But it was also relentless. He exhaled. "I won't be a king. I'm not built for that." The figure's glow pulsed, as if in approval. "Then what are you?" Ethan spread his hands. "Human. And maybe that's enough." The next day, the sky broke open. The Karen Dominion returned, this time not with envoys, but with warships. They descended in the night like burning spears, their reptilian warriors thundering through the streets of cities across the world. Humanity's weapons barely slowed them. Ethan stepped into the storm with nothing but his choice. He closed his eyes and reached inward, not to the power in his blood, but to the chorus he felt thrumming through humanity. And then he gave. The spark leapt from him like wildfire. Across continents, people woke with fire in their veins. Some found their strength multiplied. Others saw patterns where none existed before, strategies blooming like lightning. Some simply stood taller, unyielding. It was not uniform. It was not clean. But it was human. In New Delhi, a single woman held back a collapsing bridge until hundreds crossed. In Chicago, a boy no older than 12 stared down a Karen warrior with such unflinching defiance that the beast faltered, and was struck down. In the African savannah, farmers turned their tools into weapons of impossible precision. The Karen had expected one empowered human. Instead, they found a world awakening. Ethan fought at the vanguard, raw power coursing through him, but what drove the invaders back was not his strength, it was the collective roar of a species that refused to kneel. When the battle was over, the Karen fleet withdrew, shaken. They had seen empires rise and fall, but never a people so fractured, so chaotic, yet so unwilling to surrender. Humanity, in its stubborn, imperfect unity, had stood. On the cliff above the valley, Ethan watched dawn break over a battered but unbroken world. The figure of light appeared one last time, its radiance softer now. "It is done. The architect's legacy is no longer theirs to give. You have taken it." Ethan turned toward the sunrise, jaw set. "Not me. Us." The figure's glow dimmed, fading into the air. Its final whisper lingered in his mind. "Now, you have some idea of what you just became." Ethan breathed deep, tasting the cold morning air, and for the first time, he didn't feel like a man haunted by an accident. He felt like part of something vast, something new. The galaxy would come again. But next time, Earth would not face it unarmed. Humanity had chosen itself.